Doug Kide here with this week's Patriots Mailbag. If you have a question for me, tweet it to me at Doug Kide using the hashtag MailDoug. First question here, Nick D asks, whenever Edelman comes back, who's going to be the three wide receivers? Because the way Jacoby has played, it's got to be him, Bird, and Edelman in the slot, right? I'm not so sure. I think that there's a few different ways of looking at this. N'Keal Harry has been the Patriots' third wide receiver, and he hasn't been overly effective, still averaging less than 10 yards per catch. I feel like the Patriots still have not actually figured out how to use N'Keal Harry, if there is a way to use N'Keal Harry. So the Patriots think that Julian Edelman could be more productive in that third wide receiver spot. Then maybe he is the guy. Previously, I've mentioned the idea of using Edelman more like Danny Amendola as more of a situational pass catcher. Put him on the field and gotta have it situations, obvious passing situations, mitigate the risk of injury by maybe not putting him on the field that often on first and second down. But the Patriots do feel like he's back to being himself, looking like the way he did in week 2 when he set a career high in receiving yards against the Seattle Seahawks. Then maybe he can withstand the punishment of being on the field for 60 or 70% of snaps. But I do think that there's going to be a rotation at that wide receiver spot. But personally, I feel like you cannot take Jacoby Myers off of the field with the way that he has played in recent weeks. Second question here, official Cam Newton Show asks, how do you see the Patriots filling Rex Burkhead's spot? The Patriots do have good depth at running back behind Damian Harris and James White, with Sony Michel, who's now off of injured reserve, and J.J. Taylor, their rookie undrafted free agent. So I think simply they're going to put Sony Michel on the active roster over Rex Burkhead. Burkhead did suffer a season-ending knee injury. Patriots do have to deal with the fact that without Rex Burkhead, they are now going to be a more predictable offense. He was that guy who could catch and run out of the backfield. We think that Damian Harris can catch the ball, but he just hasn't done it that much. Sony Michel certainly is not shown to be a dependable pass catcher out of the backfield. And James White is limited a little bit in his between the tackles running ability. J.J. Taylor is a versatile back, but he's an undrafted free agent. The Patriots haven't used him that much. I think that they would rather activate Sony Michel. So maybe they figure out that predictability issue by putting multiple running backs on the field at the same time, but there are only so many opportunities that they can actually do that. So that's definitely something that I'm curious about, and it's an issue with Burkhead being soon to be placed on injured reserve with that knee injury. Just the fact that opposing defenses will probably know what the Patriots are going to be doing depending on which back is on the field. Quickly, third question here, Add Your Name asks, is Stephen Belichick up to the task of de facto defensive coordinator? And that's a tough question to answer, simply because the Patriots were really good last season as a defense. I know that they played some weaker competition, but they were a stout defense last season, and that's with Stephen Belichick seemingly running the show with some help from obviously head coach Bill Belichick and inside linebackers coach Gerard Mayo. This season, Patriots defense ranks dead last in Football Outsiders DVOA metric. But you could pretty easily blame that on all the players that the Patriots lost this offseason. Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, Davey Shelton, Elandon Roberts, Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower. So it would have been tough for the Patriots to be as good as they were last season. That being said, I'm not quite sure if they should be as bad as they are this season so far. So we'll have to see how things shake out through the rest of the season. I think that there are still ways for the Patriots defense to improve, especially their pass defense. So it's basically just a little bit too early to fully answer that question and say whether or not Stephen Belichick can be a defensive coordinator in the NFL, because last season the Patriots defense was so good and this season they're so bad. So the answer is somewhere in the middle there. We just don't know what it is yet.